Hey LeGrand Alive, welcome to Coffee with Will, brought to you by Grand Ron Hospital, Anything to Digital, EONI, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, and Les Schwab Tire Center. And I am here today with Steve Kirkeby, who is the pastor of Valley Fellowship here in LeGrand, an active minister in prison ministry, and a jokester extraordinaire who likes to give me guff at any possible opportunity. And he is here today to chat with me a little bit about himself and his passion for the gospel here in LeGrand. So, hey. Steve, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me here today.
Thanks for asking me.
It was my pleasure. I always feel like, I try to bring people into my life that are going to make me feel like as goofed on as humanly possible. And yeah. you generally fit into that category.
Well, I appreciate that. That's nice.
So that being said, so let's talk a little bit about your history. Now, you have lived in LeGrand for a little while now. How did you get to LeGrand, and how did you end up as the pastor of First Christian, of Valley Fellowship?
Valley Fellowship, that's right. Well, actually, I grew up in Elgin, and so it was, and graduated from Elgin High School, and went to EOU for 3 years, and then went to Reno to finish up my college education, and lived a little while in San Francisco, and then actually came back from San Francisco area back to Elgin. And during that time, I had become a Christian. I was not a Christian, all this time I was growing up, and came back and got involved just as a member of the Christian church in Elgin, and was involved in a lot of things as I was working there, just a job. I had my own business, and I also worked at a bank there in Elgin, which my dad owned. And so we were a banking family. And so, that bank kind of went away, and we left before that kind of went away, and actually moved to Florence, Oregon, and then down to Texas for a couple of years, and then had an opportunity to come back to LeGrand. I had a friend of mine that was starting a church here, and he needed some help, and we've been wanting to do some stuff ministry-wise for a long time, and get back to LeGrand or somewhere around in the area.
Sure.
And because we like it here.
Yeah.
It's home for us.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because you kind of you've gone, you started in Elgin, you left, you came back to Elgin, you left, and then you came back again. Yeah. And so it sounds like there's sort of like this is kind of your home base. Has that always been the case, or was it like did you have to leave to kind of figure out that you enjoyed being here?
Well, I just felt real comfortable here. I felt like this is where we needed to be, and we like to raise our kids in a smaller town environment, and at that time when we moved back in 1988, we had 3 small kids, and so we just felt that it was a good opportunity to do ministry work and to raise our kids, and we love Union County, Elgin, LeGrand, the whole community here, and feel real comfortable here. And we're connected with a lot of people, in the area, so it was really nice for us to get back in here.
Now, something interesting about Steve LeGrand Alive is that, unlike a lot of other pastors, Steve has kind of found his passion for doing prison ministry. He's active with multiple prisons around the area, right? Pendleton, and haven't you traveled elsewhere to do other ones?
Well, I have. I'm not presently doing that right now, but I have Umatilla, the Two River facility, the Powder River facility in Baker City. I've done some teaching at, and then I've done some speaking and some teaching nationally and regionally for Prison Fellowship, and internationally too, different places around the world. And so, but right now I'm just focusing on Pendleton. I have a weekly Bible study there at Pendleton, which I have had actually even before I helped start Valley Fellowship. So I've been doing that since 1988. Since we first moved back here.
Yeah.
And it was never an intention of mine, but it kind of came with a phone call from a guy.
Tell me a little bit about that. What's the passion for? Because doing prison ministry is a little different. I actually did a story about 3 or 4 years ago on while I was writing for the Observer. And what you have to do is you go, they check you, you go through this whole vetting process of going in, and you leave a lot of your stuff at the door before you can actually go in and do stuff with at the prison. So, I mean, that's kind of it's kind of going out of your way to do that every week. What's the passion there? Why have you kind of actively pursued doing ministry in a prison setting?
Yeah. Well, it started with a phone call from a guy by the name of Mark Hubble, and he's the Northwest Regional Director of Prison Fellowship. And Prison Fellowship's in every state and most nations around the world. They do a lot of work. And he was calling up random pastors in this area. He was doing a seminar at Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution in Pendleton, and he needed some volunteer help. And I said, sure, why not? So went over there, kind of one of these things, it was a dark and stormy night type of thing, and it was kind of creepy, and this is when the prison had been open a couple of years, so it was still an old mental hospital and still part prison. So it was kind of interesting. And I remember walking through the control doors, and you walk through them too.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Same doors.
Yeah.
And God was beating on my head saying, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to be involved in. And I had no idea that I was going to be doing that. I thought it was going to be something to do, a one-time event, but it's turned out to be a real passion and a real life, a big part of my life overall. I love the guys, and we went through a lot of things together, as much as I can, being in there just one morning a week. Yeah. And but yeah, it's interesting group of guys from all walks of life. And for a while, they even had women over there at the prison. And my wife and I did the women's section over there at the prison as well for 3 years before they moved it. Yeah. But it was just something that I had to respond to God's calling on my life. Yeah. And at that point, I really didn't speak very well. I didn't really know how to teach much. I didn't have a lot of the skills that I needed to do the work that I was called to do in there. And so I said, okay, God, if you're calling me here, then you need to equip me. You need to empower me to do the things that I need to do. And so during that time, I developed my teaching skills, my communication skills, my ability to say, okay, I'm going to lead music. I'm not a music guy.
Neither am I. I understand.
I don't play an instrument. I sing, and that's about it. But we had to figure out some way to do that, and so it fell to me and a lot of other volunteers. The year we've had, probably close to, I would think probably 100 different volunteers over the years. Wow. that have participated with me. Pendleton, Grande, Walla Walla, Hermiston. Different places all over the people, men and women. Yeah. And so it's been an interesting journey, and one that I wouldn't trade for anything. Sure. And it just, sometimes I'm kind of weary, and I'm kind of had a tough week, and I'm driving over to Pendleton on Friday morning and going, man, I don't have much. But after I'm through and coming home, I'm flying. It's just such a blessing, to be with the guys and to minister to them and to be part of their process. Because 95% of the guys that are there will get out, and so my thinking is that it's part of my responsibility as a citizen to say, okay, what can I do to help them to make the changes in their life so they can get out and be the dads and be the employee and be a member of the community again, because we need them. We need their skills, we need their talents, we need their passions, we need them being good dads and good husbands and all those things. I mean, we need them doing that. They don't do us much good in there in the prison.
Sitting and taking a bunch of resources and just not really doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, they're busy and they're doing a lot of things, but their rightful place is back in their communities with their families and doing things. And so that's my part, not only with the gospel message, but also to help them grow spiritually, but also to help them to become good, productive members of their communities when they get out. I mean, I want them. I don't want to pay the money. Maybe I'm just being cheap, but I don't want my tax money to have to keep going to those.
Absolutely.
So and
well, and that's kind of an interesting. It's interesting because a lot of times we think of criminals. We put people away, and then they're just out of sight, out of mind. We just get to live in our happily ordered society where nothing goes wrong and where kids can play in the streets, and generally everything's nice and clean and washed, and we don't have to worry about it. But we don't think about the fact about these are human beings existing in this space that arguably God has given gifts and talents and contributions to, and right now they're not really being able to fully actualize that because they're...
That's true.
And so that's kind of an interesting... I've never heard someone really have that passion for the prison ministry in that way.
And it's so important, in our day and age that, everybody's got to pull together. Everybody's got to do their part. And, I'm thinking, if a guy gets out and he reunites with his wife, let's say he's married, and he has kids, wouldn't it be much better if he was a good husband and a good dad in the community, that he would learn how to be a good employee? One of the classes I teach over there, and have taught various places, is how to be a good employee, how to be a good part, how to set goals, how to do the job that you have the opportunity to do. And it really doesn't have much to do with your skill set. It has to do with attitude and character and all those things that build up to that, And so I try to help, whatever I can to do that, along with the gospel message, build relationships with guys and help them walk through their time in prison so they can look back and say, someplace I didn't want to be, but someplace that God used to help me to clarify my thinking, help me to reorientate my life, and grow spiritually. And they look back and they can say, praise God for prison.
Wow.
My time there.
Praise God for prison. That is an interesting way of, wow. I don't know if, that would be hard. That would be very hard for me, because I know I have a hard time praising God for, when I have a toothache or when I have like a little piece of my body that's hurting, like that would be some pretty serious, like spiritual, biceps to be able to look back and be like, praise God for prison.
But I hear it all the time.
Wow, that's really cool. So that's kind of an interesting, that brings me to kind of my next question, which, one of the sort of central tenets, at least I understand it, of the gospel is that, people who live in society out here and people who live in the society of the prison, they're not any different fundamentally spiritually. Like we have our act together, but they may not, but I think sometimes that might even work antithetically to where we find less of a need for what we might be titled as the good news. You're someone who works with people who are on the outside and on the inside. Do you find more of a receptivity to the gospel inside than outside? Are there different ways that you have to interact with different people in the context of that? And I know that's kind of a tough question. You can think about that.
You think about the prison in Pendleton. Over 1,600 men there, incarcerated in Pendleton. And probably during the course of the ministry work that I do, maybe, over, let's say, 2 or 3 years, I may end up maybe having some kind of contact with 10% of the population there. Could be a large event, or it could be a Bible study, or could be a variety of things. And so, I have a very limited amount, maybe 150 guys over a period of time that I'm
actually dialoguing with.
Dialoguing with. And and then you look on the outside, and It's kind of the same.
Yeah.
You know, it really is a very, very small sliver of people that I have an opportunity to many times to share the gospel with, or to reach for Christ, or to even, you know, have the opportunity just to have a conversation or a relationship with. You know, in our culture, in our society today, you know, we've become very compartmentalized, and so, you know, we're working in our lanes, we're living in our lanes.
We have our standard modes of operating,
right.
yeah, and our places we go, people we see. And
That's
if
true.
those people don't cross, then we never see them.
That's true, and that's kind of, and you know, and that's kind of the way it is. And one of the benefits of growing up in Union County and living here for a long period of time, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of different things and work in a lot of different lanes. I mean, I worked for Bimart for my first month back here. I delivered donuts, you know, early morning donuts to all the places here in town.
You didn't bring us any donuts here
Well,
today?
you weren't even. I'm not sure if you were even a thought then. I don't know. It's been a long time
true.
ago.
That is true.
I mean, I delivered food. I mean, deliveries. I pumped portable toilets and septic tanks. You know, I worked in these variety of jobs over the years. You know, for about 15 years to support myself while the church was getting started and stuff. And so it allowed me to get contact with various people in various situations, and the fact that I grew up here. You know, my dad, my family was involved in the community here in Grande a lot. So, you know, I had people from all over.
So you're very connected in this area.
I'm very connected.
Yeah.
I feel at ease. You know. But it was one thing interesting is the fact that I'm finding myself being less connected as time goes by, because a lot of the people that I've known over the years are either, you know, retiring, moving away, dying, or whatever like that. It's kind of interesting. So my pool of people sometimes is shrinking a little bit, you know, just because of the length of time that people are around here, you know. So I find myself doing other ministry work, maybe ministry to people that are dying, or you know, they're in tough medical situations, which happens when you get a little older. You know, life. So it's interesting how the shift has happened over the years.
So how does that kind of connect with the question of like the difference between or the similarities between interacting with like the people in the prison and the people outside?
Well, I mean, I'm called by God to bring the good news, you know, to the prison, but I'm also called to bring the good news out every place else that I go to.
Yeah.
So it's not just there. It's not just in church on Sunday morning. It's, you know, as I'm talking to people in the community and as I'm doing things, and it, you know, so it really doesn't make any difference. But I need to make myself available for God to use every place I go, and I need to be aware of that. So if I'm up to the retirement center, or I'm at the hospital, or let's say I'm having a cup of coffee at Joe Bean's or something like that, I will know that maybe there's some relationship, there's some connections there. There's people all around me that need to hear the good news, and I need to be very observant, and I need to be very willing to say something when, you know, something needs to, you know, be said. For instance, last week I was down in Southeast Oregon hunting rocks, which is one of my hobbies. I like to hunt rocks, and we were.
Do they run fast? The rocks? Do they run fast? You have to
Not too much. Not too much. They're
you don't have to have a vehicle to chase them down with.
No, you have to have a vehicle to get to where they're at sometimes.
That's true,
And so we were out kind of tooling around on our four-wheelers, and we came across a pickup that had just rolled, that had wrecked. And it probably within the next probably couple of minutes we were there on site. I mean, way out in the middle of the Oregon desert. I mean, like that. The people were stumbling out, and they were bleeding, and you know, they weren't hurt seriously, but they were banged up like that. And you know, medically, you know, I don't know what to do there, and you know, and so we kind of got them kind of calmed down and settled down and stuff, and kind of heard their story a little bit, and there was a whole bunch of factors that were involved in this, but what I could do at that time, I said, hey, I can't really do much for you medically, but can I pray for you? And so I gathered everybody around, and we prayed, and in the midst of that horrible situation that they were dealing with, I saw an opportunity and an obligation to bring the good news, to bring some peace and some comfort into some people that were in kind of a tough situation. And right after that, their friends showed up in another vehicle and kind of got them situation and situated, and we left. But yeah, so you have those opportunities to speak good news to people. Another good example would be when I first moved back to La Grande to start ministry work, and I'd been gone for like 7 years. And I'd become a Christian since then, and people knew me, so I went to work at Bi-Mart. And I was checking there at Bi-Mart, and I didn't work there for very long, but I worked there for several months, and people were surprised to see me. And so they would ask me the question, well, what brings you back to La Grande? And I would give an opportunity to share my testimony and to share what God was doing in my life. And so I took advantage for that, and same way with pumping portable toilets. And I was out there pumping portable toilets and doing stuff, and people would ask me, how could you stand to do that? And that would give me the opportunity to share the good news about my life, and that job was enabling me to do ministry work here in La Grande.
Praise God for portable toilets.
That's right. I don't mind them at all. I really don't mind them. Some people go like this, but I'm fine with them. I'm fine with them. So just using opportunities that I need, or that not so much need, but have every day as I interact with people. And my job is to make sure I'm available. I made a change here 7, 8 years ago. I said, okay, I'm not going to use a drive-up window. When I go to the bank, when I get my coffee, or when I get something at a fast food joint or whatever like that, I'm going to go in. And what that did, that slowed me down a little bit because I was busy, but it also gave me the opportunity to interact with people. I would meet people in the coffee shop or McDonald's or someplace where I was at, or at the bank, and we'd have great conversations that I would have missed if I would have just sped through the drive-up window. So, just making sure that we have the opportunities, to share the gospel, and that's why, with our building, Valley Fellowship, we have, we bought the old National Guard Armory down by Pioneer Park, and it was a much bigger building than we would ever need at the point. And our thinking was that we could use it to impact the community in various ways. And so we've opened up our building to various groups to use the building, and not only Christian organizations, but high school groups and just different things, a variety of things.
There's this weird group, these like writers or something.
There's a writers group. Yeah, that's right. You guys are meeting there
too. They're weird.
Yeah,
I know.
Writers groups are meeting there. We have the Christian Homeschool Association meets there. We have MOPS for several years through the Mothers Preschools. We have Grand Run Academy, the Christian school that rents from our building, and we've used our building as kind of a presentation of the good news, the gospel message out there we can share. We try not to charge anything, or it doesn't make a difference to us in some ways, and so we try to offer those things to our community. Use the opportunity that we have to share the gospel with those around us.
So we're kind of running out of time here. So the last thing that I'm gonna kind of ask you, and think about this for a second. If there's one sort of moment where the opportunity for you to share or to use or to enact the gospel has been just like that moment where you're just like, that's what this is all about. You know, whether that be in prison ministry or I guess otherwise, you know, what is the opportunity for the gospel? Is there a story that's related to that?
Well, there's lots of stories.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it's
but
just,
one that's
it's
particularly powerful to you. And like I said, you can think about that if you need.
Well, probably the one, even though it's kind of a funny little story, but it's the power of the gospel. When we moved back to La Grande, or when we settled here in La Grande in 1988, we bought the house that we still live in, and across the street from us was a little old lady, and she had been here a long time, and she'd lived in that house, and actually her son had actually owned the house that we lived in at one time, and through a whole set of circumstances, her family, not her, but her family that was here in La Grande started coming to church at Valley Fellowship. And we kind of made the connection, and we weren't really well connected, but the story came out. The story came out, she says, you know, I was really unsure about you and Verla when you moved in there, because we thought, our whole family thought, because of all the different people that were coming out of your house all the time, that you were a couple of drug dealers.
That's what I thought when I first met you.
I
was like, drug dealer right there.
I look,
you were going into prisons.
Yeah,
you were like, you know.
Yeah, like that. There was a lot of stuff going on, you know, and she didn't know us.
Yeah.
You know, she kind of kept to herself, and her family started coming. And so eventually she started coming to Valley Fellowship. And I had the opportunity, and she was like in her mid 80s, to actually baptize her. And I shared the gospel message with her, and even though she had you know, considered herself a Christian for a long time, she'd never taken the step of getting baptized, and because she was scared of water. She was really scared of going underneath the water. And so I baptized. She finally had enough courage that I got to do it. And so we baptized her, and it was just a wonderful testimony of how God can use us, to reach people in spite of all the misconceptions that we may have,
about each other.
And also that we could have stayed separate and not really connected at all, but God brought us together, and
yeah,
it's been an amazing time.
And that
been an amazing time.
And that kind of ties in with your prison ministry. Even though you might see someone as just a little different, there's connection through the gospel that you can have.
Yeah, it is interesting. I haven't, I got a letter from a guy several years ago, and he had been in prison. And I don't get very much contact with guys once they get out. They I'm kind of that section of their life that in some ways they want to leave behind.
You really never know what's happening.
No, a lot of times sometimes I do, but not very often. And the guy sent me a letter and said, "Hey, I just want to know how much the ministry meant to him, and also to his family. The fact that he'd been out for 8-10 years and reestablished his life, and he just wanted to thank me and the volunteers, the people that came in that helped support him, to help put his life back together."
Yeah.
And he was, his marriage was strong, according to his letter. He was working, his family was back together. And I'm thinking, okay, that's exactly what, I was driving. He was a member of his church, and he's strong in his faith. And so I'm thinking, okay, that's exactly what I want. That's what I want,
There you go.
That's my vision.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me today.
Glad to be asked.
I'm sure I could chat with you all day about this, but the show must go on at least until it ends. And we are at the end, La Grande Live. Thank you so much for tuning in to Coffee with Will and Steve Kirkeby. This show is brought to you by Grande Hospital, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Anything to Digital, EONI, and Les Schwab Tire Center. Please like and share the video, and tune into LaGrandeLive.tv for more local content. I'm Will Bowman.